The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The Derbyshire Dales series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales again, everybody. Now, in my drive across here this morning, a lot of the places which were affected by the snow in early January seem to have lost all their snow, quite frankly. It's all melted away. There are still some patches here in this particular village, though, which is not surprising, considering this is the highest village in the Derbyshire Dales. Its name is Chelmorton. Chelmorton, Chelmers Hill. This week on TVI, we're back in the Derbyshire Dales for another run. I always love coming to the Dales, you know. These are fabulous little villages, and they hold secrets you wouldn't immediately know. That can certainly be said of today's offering. This is Chelmorton, a little to the northwest of Buxton, its nearest town. The name Chelmorton derives from an Old English personal name and probably means Chelmers Hill. The elevation in question is pretty prominent, so much so that Chelmorton claims to officially be the highest village in the Dales. The village lines essentially one long street which sits in a shallow basin on a limestone plateau. It forms part of the White Peak. Around the village you can't miss the rectangular fields that are bordered by limestone walls. That layout indicates Chelmorton once had medieval open fields. At the northern end of the village, at the bottom of Chelmorton Low, is the Church of St John the Baptist, which dates from the 11th century. It stands close to the source of the village's traditional water supply, which has a really funny name: Illy Willy Water. At the opposite end of the village stands its oldest dwelling, Town End Farm, built originally by Isaiah Buxton in 1634. Locally it's known as Chelmorton Hall and was the ancestral home and family seat of the Marsden family. One of the other interesting tales to tell here is that of perpetual motion, all wrapped up in the history of the Church Inn pub. There's lots more, so let's walk and discover what life's like at the summit of the Derbyshire Dales. Let's begin by driving into Chelmorton along a road to the south of the village. This is called the Ditch. It runs pretty much parallel with a medieval boundary ditch and bank, hence the name. The ditch, which is in three distinct parts, is to our left-hand side here. It was identified in the 1960s and used to surround a medieval field system. Such ditches and systems were common in Derbyshire centuries ago. We've even seen a couple before on our travels. Often they survive to the present day because of the continued use of the boundary by the local farmers. Most of the time now, though, stone walls are placed on or aligned with their banks. The banks themselves are composed of surface stones and turfs from the immediate vicinity, or where there's an outer ditch they're made of soil. Where the banks have been eroded by ploughing, recent replacement walls often fossilise their alignments. This one at Chelmorton has one such example. In places it's a broad, well-defined bank. It defines the outer edge of what were Chelmorton's open fields to the south and east, whilst elsewhere the limits are largely defined topographically. The westernmost and central stretches are in good condition, but the eastern bank has been ploughed down and has substantially spread and widened. Let's head for the village itself now. We start at the southern end of the village close to Town End Farm, locally known as Chelmorton Hall. It was the ancestral home of the Marsden family and remains one of the most historically important buildings here today. That said, there are plenty of others, and by walking straight up this, the main street, we'll catch most of them. Over the centuries, the name of the village has been listed variously as Chelmorton, Chilmorton, Chelmerton and Chelmarton. It lies about 4.5 miles south of Buxton and has several claims to fame. It's the highest village in Derbyshire, according to several sources. As such, it can claim to have the highest church too. It also, by extension, reckons to have the highest pub in Derbyshire, but as we know, that's impossible. Go and see my Fuller episode to understand why. Chelmorton was built along the banks of a little stream known to the locals as Illy Willy water. It provided a constant supply of pure water for the village. It came out of the hill just above the church, ran down what became the village street, and slipped away into a swallet hole. This here is the primitive hall. It was built in 1874 and it's a former Methodist chapel, but it remains in use as the venue for several annual village events. The most notable is the Southern Ocean Dinner, which takes place every May. The hall acts as host to the Buxton District Land Rover Club Hollinsclough Shield Scatter Hunt. That was a mouthful to say. Their summer ball is held at the hall to help raise funds for local charity issues. Another venue which can cater for events is just over the road. Financed by public subscription and officially called the War Memorial Institute, this is Chelmorton's Village Hall. The hall was used for many years as a men's social club and the meeting place for the Women's Institute, the Parish Council, the Friendship Club and the canteen for the local school. It was opened in 1922 as a memorial to those of the parish who served in World War I, and the names of these people are recorded on a handsome marble memorial. A further plaque displaying the names of those who served in World War II was added in 2012. Every year, a village festival lasting several days is held and hosted by the Institute to raise cash, which is then distributed between the church, the Institute and a small educational charity. During its time, the residents make a special effort to decorate their properties. It's usually a very successful venture. In 2016, for example, the festival raised just over £2,000 for its causes. Also on an annual basis, Buxton holds a carnival and procession in the summertime. Chelmorton traditionally enters a float, often themed as the many faces of Elvis Presley. Another annual event which takes place in Chelmorton itself is the Chelmorton Chase. It's a very tough championship fell race which occurs every September. Now, I'm sure you will have noticed there's a parish notice board outside the hall there, but I'm not leaving a card, and the reason for that is because I've only got a tiny little few left. I think I've got about 10 left, and I don't want to fully run out because it's always helpful to have my cards on me if someone asks me what I'm doing. I'm kind of expecting that today, to be honest with you, because I'm in the Derbyshire Dales. Everybody out here is friendly and they will talk to you, so I'm not leaving a card here on the notice board or on any of the others I shall do on this particular run. Now, so far we've been walking uphill. This is a gentle slope from where we began all the way up to the church, which is at the top of the hill. So far it's been fairly easy, to be honest with you. It's not very steep, but it's about to get steeper. Now, the hall can't be used as a school canteen anymore because there's no school here these days. Children from Chelmorton go to Harper Hill Primary School, Buxton Community School, Moneyash Primary School and Lady Manners School. I can still show you though where the old school is. Known as Chelmorton Infants in its later days, this was built as a national school in 1882 but later became a county primary school. Until 1968 the school took both infant and junior children. The juniors were later transferred to Harper Hill, leaving Chelmorton as an infant school only until 1983 when it ceased to be maintained. It continued in use for a while as an annex to Harper Hill. Okay, we're almost at the top of the hill and we have a junction. What is this sorcery? We've basically been walking up one long road so far. We're going to go down that junction to finish this episode in a few moments' time. After we've explored the northern end of the village, which is a dead end, I'll show you where we're about to go. We're going up here, and up there you'll find a pub and a church and also the source of a stream. Although a dead end, this is where most of the main landmarks are. The pub, the church and the source of Illy water are all in this area. Now, refreshing locals and travellers alike since 1742 is the Church Inn, a quintessentially English pub which has a roaring fire on a snowy day or a meadow of buttercups on a summer's day. At the Church Inn, you'll be welcomed by Justin and Julie, who have been running the pub for many years, offering traditional pub fare produced locally and cooked on the premises. The pub claims, incorrectly, to be the highest in Derbyshire. Whilst that might be false, the Church Inn can 100% claim another piece of history, and there's no disputing this one. Here's the story of the local blacksmith, Alexander Ollerenshaw. Alexander Ollerenshaw, or Alec as he was known, was both a blacksmith and the landlord of the pub between 1793 and 1827. This connection was reflected in the Church Inn's former name, the Blacksmith's Arms. Aside from metalworking and pulling pints though, he spent many years trying to perfect a machine to prove the theory of perpetual motion. In fact, it took over his entire life. He was an eccentric man. The local parish register records Ollerenshaw as an ingenious blacksmith and musician, and having for more than 50 years vainly endeavoured to find out perpetual motion. He died on October the 16th, 1841, having never realised his dream. In broad terms, perpetual motion is defined as the motion of bodies that continues forever in an unperturbed system. A perpetual motion machine, hypothetically, can do work indefinitely without an external energy source. Scientists know today, though, that such a machine is impossible, since its existence would violate the first and second laws of thermodynamics. Even the solar system doesn't operate perpetually. Celestial bodies, such as planets for example, are subject to many processes that slowly dissipate their kinetic energy, such as solar wind, gravitational radiation, and thermal radiation. Put simply, they can't keep moving forever. However, in 2016, new states of matter called time crystals were discovered. On a microscopic scale, their component atoms are in continual repetitive motion and therefore satisfy the literal definition of perpetual motion. So, is it possible? Unfortunately, no. The crystals do not constitute perpetual motion machines in the traditional sense or violate thermodynamic laws because they are in something called a quantum ground state. That means no energy can be extracted from them, and they exhibit motion without energy. Ollerenshaw's machine was dismantled after his death, but local people kept bits as a reminder of him. In addition, his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter have both left a permanent mark on the Church Inn. Walk in there today and you might see them, because allegedly they now haunt the place. Once past the pub, the road ends and it becomes a footpath. Alongside that path, you'll see the source of Illy water, Bank Pit Spring. Now, earlier, as we made our way up to this point, we passed some troughs, but I've left them for this particular part of the video. These troughs are the last remaining pair of 7, which were located all along the western side of the main street, with one on the eastern side, near Town End. The water originates from a spring at the foot of Chelmorton Low and ran as a stream. When the troughs were installed, they were connected by gritstone channels to improve the flow, which ended at Chelmorton Docks before disappearing down that swallet hole at Town End. The villagers began modernising their water supply in the late 19th century by installing a header tank and piping the water to houses and farms. Illy water now runs underground, and today the villagers get their supply from Ladybower Reservoir. The parish council do a lot to ensure the area around the spring is kept tidy and preserved to a high standard. In 2014, some of the dead and dangerously positioned trees around it were removed and then replanted, providing colour in the spring and summer and food for birds in the autumn and winter. The trees were provided free of charge by OVO Energy. Okay, we've climbed all the way to the top of the hill. You can't get much higher than this. There is a hill behind the spring, but there's no way on earth I'm going up there. What I am going to do is I'm going to head into this churchyard, which you can see behind me, because that's one of the last things we've got to talk about here in Chelmorton. At 1,200 feet above sea level, Chelmorton is the highest parish in the Derby diocese. As such, this is the highest church with a spire anywhere in England. St John the Baptist Church is built into the hillside, and this means that parts of it are on different levels. Atop the spire is a golden locust, which sits on a weather vane. Within the tower are a series of bells, which were saved from the now demolished village of Derwent, the one submerged under Ladybower Reservoir. A place of Christian worship has existed here since at least the early 13th century, quite possibly earlier. The oldest surviving written record is dated 1256, but one of the old oak beams, now long gone, is believed to have been marked 1111. Throughout its existence, the church has suffered from the adverse climate it endures so high above sea level. This has necessitated a number of extensive restoration programs over the years, with major work carried out in the 13th, 16th, 19th and 20th centuries. This restoration work continues today, with repairs aimed at ensuring the safety of the tower, spire and that famous locust. The church has many internal features of interest. The Lady Chapel, for example, was built in the second half of the 13th century as a chantry. It's now enhanced by embroidered panels that show some of the history of the village, plus the flora and bird life common to this part of Derbyshire. It's likely that the marble for the memorial tablets on the chancel walls may have come from either Ashford or Sheldon, where marble was quarried and worked from 1748 until 1905. Now, to finish with, we have a little walk to do along a lane that has virtually no properties. This is not a bad thing. Chelmorton is the highest village in the Dales, and the lack of any buildings to obstruct the view means from here you get a bloody good one. Let's admire this for a while as we make our way downhill again towards the start. Blimey, this looks steep. This is my route back to the beginning. This footpath which runs alongside this dry stone wall. I think I might be holding on to that in these first couple of stages, because that is quite a drop. But somewhere over there is my car. If this is the highest parish in the Dales, that means from here we can only go down. We're making our way towards Lathkildale for the rest of this week, and next up we're off to find a village that has a pet crematorium and a model aeroplane business. Talk about varied. I'll see you tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.